Senate Bill number 1343, an act concerning compassionate care for victims of sexual assault.
The House of Representatives took up the Plan B bill this week. SB 1343 was amended and passed by the Senate last week. It would require all hospitals to offer emergency contraception to victims of sexual assault. The bill includes a third-party solution designed to address the concerns of Catholic hospitals.
This third-party provision, Mr. Speaker, was not in the original bill. It was made part of the Senate amendment as a result of several meetings that Senator Harris and I, along with other committee members and other interested legislators, held with the representatives of the Connecticut Catholic Conference and in an exchange of correspondence with them. In fact, we came away from those meetings with the belief that the third-party option, freeing hospital personnel from involvement with the administration of the Plan B pill, would be acceptable to the state's Catholic hospitals. We all regret that it did not work out that way, but we proceeded on the basis of what's best for the victim.
I think this is essentially an issue about good health care and a victim's rights issue for people, and I would ask that everyone consider whether, and I think many of us have started asking ourselves, if we were ever in this position, what we would want to have available as an option and as a decision that we should be able to make about our own health and our own situation.
As a Catholic, Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the history of advocacy on behalf of social justice causes and issues that the Catholic Church has taken over time. But I'm dismayed by the fact that the Connecticut Catholic Church in particular has not adopted the same approach of the New Jersey and New York dioceses and others in embracing this act, which is consistent, as I understand it, with Catholic doctrine.
I would note it's very important that after 2 years of public hearings and testimony and such, I don't believe that there were any women that came forth to testify and complain that because of the treatment they received at a Catholic hospital, they were forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy to term, or they were compromised in their ability to heal. Certainly you would think that if there were women out there with that problem, we would have heard about them. It seems to me in some senses we've got a solution here for a problem that doesn't exist.
Catholic hospitals follow protocol for rape victims that are both acceptable and consistent. This care is extremely caring and complete. They receive respect, kindness, and compassionate care. This care includes the administration of emergency contraception, Plan B, in almost all cases, but in those extremely rare situations where testing reveals that conception has occurred, and I'd like to re-emphasize the extremely rare situations. These hospitals cannot take any action to abort the fetus because of their respect for all human life.
Going to the next step, if this bill is passed, the question I ask myself is, what position are we putting Catholic hospitals in? And there's really three options that they're now going to have. They're going to, A, be required to violate their religious tenements, their deep-rooted beliefs, in order to comply with this law, or B, civilly disobey this law, or C, close down. And I think all of those options are viable options that they're going to be faced with. And I'm concerned today that we have not adequately addressed these concerns. The risk is there.
To deny contraception to a rape victim based on a positive LH test, which is recently the case in Connecticut Catholic hospitals, to deny that is to let the hospital use poor science to deny care to this victim. However, I'm strongly in favor of preserving religious rights, both for the rape victim who wants this contraception and for the church who does not wish to provide it. So the solution here is to allow the hospitals to pass off this responsibility to someone else. That's what this bill does, and that's why we should support it.
I believe I saw a television public affairs type program in which someone, it might have been Senator Harris, was talking about this and I believe indicated that, and I'm not sure where the number comes from, 18 of the 31 hospitals in the state of Connecticut seemingly had either a prohibition or some kind of a restriction on the availability of Plan B. And my first question is that true? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
President Heinrich.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, to my knowledge, it wasn't necessarily a prohibition. Those numbers, if I'm thinking of the same numbers that you are, good sir, are numbers that came from this same study we were talking about earlier, where that number of hospitals, those women did not receive it, as opposed to having a prohibition on it.
There are a total of 4 Catholic hospitals in the state of Connecticut. Is that correct? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
President Heinrich.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, yes, that is my understanding.
President O'Neill.
And while math was not my best subject in school, 4 from 18 leaves 14, if I got the numbers right. So that my understanding then would be that there were 14 other hospitals at minimum, that a minimum of 14 other hospitals had to have also either declined, in one way or another, declined to make Plan B available. Is that correct? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
President Heinrich.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, that is correct, and that's why we've crafted the bill to be a bill that addresses all hospitals.
A vote was taken in the House after nearly 3 hours of debate.
In concurrence with the Senate, total number voting 149, necessary for passage 75. Those voting yea 113, those voting nay 36, absent, not voting 2.
The bill passes as amended.
The bill now goes to Governor Rell for final approval. With her signature, the law would go into effect on October 1st.
Substitute for Senate Bill 686.
The Senate was in session on Wednesday. Among the bills considered, a substitute for SB 686, an act concerning access to health and nutritional information in restaurants.
In an effort to provide folks with the information that they need in order to understand what they are ordering and what they are eating, this bill will require that restaurants who have national restaurants who have at least 10 branches or 10 outlets will be required to place in their restaurants on menu boards and on their menus information which will tell consumers in all respects what the number of calories that the food that they are eating amounts to.
I think that information is now available today to the consumer in many, many forms, and I don't see the need to, number one, create an expense to all of these establishments. This isn't just chain stores that are national. There are some smaller chains within the state of Connecticut that would be forced to do this, and I think it also puts them in a position of having to deal with zoning laws in those small towns that have a signage a limitation. So that creates a problem for them.
Just posing calories on the menu could be very misleading to consumers. If you look at the number of calories in a chicken sandwich and the number of calories in a burger, they're actually relatively similar. But the health effects can be drastically different because of the amount of saturated fat and the amount of trans fat in each of them. So, Mr. President, I'm going to be voting no on this bill, not because I don't believe that having transparency is a good idea. I do. I just don't believe that this bill is well written at this point. We need to either say we are going to let the market take care of this, or we should be mandating all the health information, not just the caloric content.
While it would be nice if there were some other things attached to this, like the amount of cholesterol, the amount of protein, the amount of carbohydrate, when you're trying to lose weight, dietitians tell you it's the calories. And so you have got to know how many calories you're eating. And one of the things that I've discovered is that there are a lot of hidden calories in a lot of the food that we eat.
Do any other states have these kind of requirements, or is Connecticut going to be the first to initiate this?
Senator Handley.
Thank you, Mr. President. New York City has this requirement, and the state of California has a similar bill being under discussion in its legislature.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Handley. I just make a comment, I guess. I guess my problem with it is that not so much the cost or the, it's just that it seems to assume that average person doesn't have any common sense. And, you know, I think they do. I think that, you know, we ate here in the caucus, and I made some choices that were pretty bad. And I didn't need any calorie count to know that. I mean, you have a basic sense that a spinach salad's better than a Big Mac for you. And people are making these choices not because they don't know, but because they're willing to ignore it, and they're saying, hey, something may not be good for them, but they're going to enjoy it. And
I think it's just a very simple step forward in providing calorie information, just basic calorie information. We're doing what nutritionists say is most important in providing this information for people. It will help folks have the freedom to make, in many cases, healthier choices, but certainly an informed choice.
The Senate approved the amended bill by a vote of 28-7. It now goes to the House for consideration.
House Joint Resolution number 11.
First on Tuesday and again on Thursday, House Joint Resolution number 11 was considered in the House.
This resolution is a constitutional amendment that is designed to allow individuals who are 17 years of age and have pre-registered to vote under current law to vote in primaries. Our predecessors here in the legislature and the drafters of our Constitution had decided that we should determine the qualifications of electors primarily through the state constitution. And that's why we are working on a constitutional amendment rather than a resolution.
There's this gray zone we've all heard about where individuals, 16 and 17-year-olds, are treated like an adult for many purposes, criminal purposes and otherwise, but also still, in many regards, a minor. Parents are not allowed to enforce their children's 16 to 17-year-old behavior under certain circumstances, but yet the parents may have responsibility for those individuals' actions. We're creating all these, I think, very difficult operational elements within our society, both in the legal system and then now here, potentially constitutionally. And that's my concern about what is before us today.
I think that Representative Delgado has a lot of good points about we certainly create different benchmarks in our statutes and in our Constitution, but I think this is something that has been thought out very well, and I would ask members to support it.
If a municipality is having that primary and that we are allowing 17-year-olds to vote, but at that time there could be an emergency situation where they have to put a referendum question on the ballot, does that mean a municipality would have to have separate voting booths in regards to this? So that way, if a 17-year-old who could vote through this bill during the primary but could not vote on that referendum question, does the municipality understand that they would have to have multiple voting booths then?
That's an excellent question, and I would suggest that recent changes in the way that we'll be voting in Connecticut would help to resolve that, because the municipality would not have to have separate voting booths, but perhaps could have separate ballots printed up, one for the primary and one for the referendum that would be used in the optical scan voting machines.
There's a reason we set dates and times. And Madam Speaker, I would like to pass, the thought that it's an honor to vote and that you should study the issues before you vote. You should study about the candidates before you vote. And some things are worth waiting for. And to me, it's a rite of passage. I think that 18 is 18 is 18.
The final vote then led to some confusion in the chamber.
Total number of voting 141, those voting yea 105, those voting nay 36, absent not voting 10.
The resolution has received an affirmative vote
of more than a majority of the total members, the resolution is adopted.
We, on this side of the aisle, are not clear as to the ruling of the chair with regard to the effect of the vote tally, wondering whether it's not a 3/4 that needed to pass the legislation or 2/3, and how many is present, et cetera. If you could make that clarification, be appreciated.
3/4 of the total membership of each chamber is required to place this amendment on the ballot in the next general election in November of 2008. If this resolution receives less than 3/4, but more than a simple majority of the total membership in either chamber, then this resolution will not be on the ballot in 2008. Instead, it will be considered again by the 2009 General Assembly. At that time, a simple majority of each chamber will place it on the ballot in November of 2010.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe that clarifies. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
House Joint Resolution 11 now goes to the Senate. If it gets a simple majority there, the resolution will be preserved for consideration by the General Assembly in 2009. In other action this week, in a vote of 17 to 10, the Public Health Committee approved House Bill 6715, an act concerning the palliative use of marijuana. The Senate then referred the bill to Finance, Revenue, and Bonding for consideration. The Senate approved SB 1184, which would allow Connecticut to move up its presidential primary next year to February 5th to join 22 other states in what's being called Super Duper Tuesday. Also, SB 1094, which would strengthen state bullying statutes, and SB 1031 concerning a study of legalized gambling. All of these bills now go to the House for consideration. And among the bills approved by the House this week, HB 6370, which would increase the penalty for illegal use of handicapped parking spaces. That bill now goes to the Senate for consideration.